How's it going, friends? Reckless Yuki here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Microsoft's new up-and-coming controller, the Xbox One Elite, that will be dated for October 2015, so later this year, and it will be for the Xbox One and the PC, and we're going to be comparing it to other availabilities out on the market today, and determine whether or not it's going to be worth your investment. So hopefully you guys enjoy and stay tuned in the video. So I know that the features and overall thoughts of this controller have already been covered by tech tubers and gaming news channels, but one thing that I might have that they possibly might not is actual experience when it comes to modified controllers. So because of my experience with modified controllers, I think my opinions might be a little bit more validated than theirs because no one has their hands on this controller, and my channel is way too small to even get any sort of hookup for Microsoft to be able to get my hands on this early. So what I'm going to have to go off of is my experience on modified controllers. So to just kind of share with you guys my controller resume, here is a Scuf one that I purchased when it first was released for the Xbox One. This is a 4-paddle controller, and it has the trigger stops, the grip, and a modified dome analog stick for the left. The right, I always just use a Control Freak on top of a standard controller. It's something that I learned that I like better than trying to get a actual modified stick from Scuf. As well as I have a Scuf Hybrid, which was an Xbox 360 4-paddle controller. This had the special grip, trigger stops, and adjustable triggers, as well as a modified domed analog stick, and the right analog stick is the same. I purchased this at the end of the life of the Xbox 360 because I was still playing the Xbox 360, and I needed a wireless solution so it wouldn't interfere with the voice chat for when I'm making content for YouTube. But before this, I had a Scuf Animal, which is in the closet in the back, and I didn't feel like digging it out because it's under a bunch of boxes. And not only these two, I also have a Scuf controller for the PlayStation 4, which is called the Scuf 4 PS. And this has only 2 paddles because that's what Scuf offers, but this has the special EMR technology, which is just basically a chip that you activate with holding up a little magnetic key, and you could program these buttons to basically do whatever the face buttons are. You just have to hold the key, press it, and then press this or something like that. I haven't said it in a while, but that's basically what you do. And this controller is really fantastic. It has a modified dome stick, no trigger stops needed, and then it has like some special grip on the back. So that is that. And as well as some other controllers I had in the past, like a Razer Sabertooth, which was kind of crap, and as well as a homemade Scuf I made a long time ago, which I made a video on. You could probably see it in the really old videos on my channel, but that's basically an overview of my experience when it comes to modified controllers. So moving over to the website now, as you see, I'm going to shift my screen up here, and we're going to just take a look at the website to see what they say about it, because this has basically all the information needed on this controller. So we're just going to be going over the features and overview, and then compare it to things like the Scuf for the Xbox One to kind of give my opinions on whether or not this is going to be worth your time and investment. And then I'll go over my recommended solution if you want a higher sense or higher gaming experience with aftermarket peripherals. So anyways, getting started with the Xbox One, this is going to come at us at $150, which is really expensive compared to like the $50-$60 Xbox One controller. But if you compare this with a Scuf, I think it's highly worth it, and this is actually a bargain as long as this works well. But from the videos I've seen and the hype, it looks like Microsoft is really taking a step into the professional gaming market, as well as trying to make sure that the really enthusiast gamers get a quality product from them. So I'm really excited about this, and I might possibly buy one of these. Even though I don't really use controllers and I mainly play on the PC, this controller seems really badass. But anyways, let's just scroll down, and this is the wireless controller. One thing with the Xbox One that is a pretty basic feature that everyone should know now is if you hook up the micro USB cable to this, it turns it into a wired controller. So if you're really into having a wired solution with the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, as well as the PlayStation 3 controllers, if you hook up the wire to the controller to the console, it will act as a wired controller because all the signals will be sent over the USB wire, unlike the Xbox 360 controller that was still infrared even if you put the charge and play kit on it. So scrolling down, it has improved performance and fit, which you could change out the analog stick. So that's something that is really freaking cool. Even the stupid domed or D-pad, you could change to this dome thing for, I guess, better enhanced fighting games. Even though it's just an 8-directional pad, I guess some people really like it. I don't really care about it too much. And the other features is the main features are these back paddles, which I like the look of these back paddles, at least the positions of them. One thing about my Xbox One is that you have these back paddles in the back, so your hand normally just like fits it like this. So in order to get the back paddles, you press it like that, or you have to stretch out and kind of go like that. But over a while, you get really used to it. But one thing I like about that is like your hand, I'm sorry, I gotta keep mind of where's the mic. I'm getting excited about the controller, but your hand is just like, you know, resting on this palm, and basically with this, like, you're kind of just like pressing these, so you're not necessarily like gripping this, whereas you're more like kind of like holding on to the control, it looks like, with your pinkies, but then using your ring fingers and your middle fingers in order to activate the back paddles. So that's something might be a little bit easier and more intuitive to play than the Xbox One controller, where you're mainly using your ring finger and your pinkies to hold on to the base of the grip, and then you use your middle fingers in order to move back and forth to the other buttons, whereas this, it accommodates you to more use your ring fingers into the P3 and P4 buttons. So that's something that I think is really cool. And as well as these right here, if you're looking at these are basically adjustments for the trigger stops. So you can have it set down where it's going to offer full range of the triggers, but if you push it up, it basically has a little, I guess, a plastic piece that moves up to limit the restriction on the actual trigger. So you can have one controller with trigger stops installed, unlike the Xbox One for the Scuf, where you have to actually remove these side panels and physically remove the stop. These, you just like flick that button up or down, and then you engage or disengage it. So that's something that's really freaking cool. And then it has, you know, the faster triggers and trigger locks, which I already stated. And one thing about these triggers that's pretty cool is that you can actually adjust the value and the range within the Microsoft app. So as you see here, this is an app that will be available for the Xbox One as well as on the PC. And you can modify and customize the layout of the back buttons, the back 4 paddle buttons, as well as the adjustments of the triggers of how sensitive you want these triggers. So if you want to shoot like right when you like barely tap on the trigger to get some really awesome rapid fire going, like not actually rapid fire, but just like, you know, like really fine hair triggers, finer than what you could get with the Xbox One. Or at least you don't have to adjust it, you just adjust it actually in here, and then you could kind of set the actual values of it instead of going through with a screwdriver like you would with the Xbox One Scuf and kind of guesstimate where you need to set it. So I really like the idea of this. So this app definitely offers a lot of flexibility, and then you could set 2 different profiles. So if you're playing a game like, let's say you really like Destiny and then you really like Call of Duty, you could have this set up in different profiles so that you can match the buttons the way you need them to match. So another really cool thing. So scrolling down, I mean, it has the nice grips on the back, is something that I forgot to mention. And then it comes with this case, braided USB cord, and all these accessories with the case that all fits perfectly fine. And there's just a lot of things that are like supported with this. And one thing about the back paddles that I read down here is that you can control all the face buttons as well as the left and right click, the shoulder buttons, the directional pad, I believe, if it says, yep, the D-pads. So everything you can control with the back paddles if you want, and it's just full customizability as far as what you need for your game on how you play. So really cool stuff coming from Microsoft. So that's an overview of the Microsoft controller, and for $150 for all this, I think is actually quite a deal, especially if we compare it to Scuf. So let's move on over to Scuf's offering, and here is a new Scuf controller that's going to be released this summer called the Scuf Infinity 1. And it has basically, you could swap out the back paddles to like different sizes and shapes, but it's not as cool as the Xbox One, I feel. You could change out the analog sticks, which is something that I think is really cool. One thing I didn't like about these analog sticks is they offer you the standard, they offer you dome, but then they offer you the extended, so you don't necessarily need a control freak. But one thing I like is having an extended domed analog stick. So I'm not sure if these domed here are going to be the same length as the extended, and then I'm not sure if that's going to equal the same length as you would with a standard stick and a control freak on it. That's one thing that's going to be actually have to be tested hands-on, which I might possibly do. I'm really interested in actually buying this controller, so I might actually compare this controller with my Scuf one just to give a really good side-by-side comparison. But anyways, we can only speculate as far as what it might be now, and one thing I hope is that these are the same length, but if not, I would prefer to have a dome top than the actual standard analog stick top, but that's just my own personal preference. So going back to the Scuf Infinity 1, They give you those features, so as you can see, you could swap it out with this key, which seems pretty legit, and then you can swap out these back paddles, so no longer do you have to have the screws on the back. You could kind of easily swap them out, and one thing I like about that is it could be possible that these aren't going to break. One thing I had an issue with my Scuf Animal for the Xbox 360 is, like, when it comes to these back paddles, what Scuf does is they kind of shave them down to give them the proper angle so they're not always going to be pressed on the button here. And because of that, if you put a lot of wear and tear on these, you could break off the paddle, which I did in the past, and I had to get an actual repair kit and repair it myself, which wasn't bad, but that was just extra money and extra time spent to actually repair the back paddle. Where with the Xbox One, it looked like, I'm not sure if these are actual aluminum or not. If they're aluminum, that would be freaking amazing, but they might just be painted plastic, so that, you know, if it is, so be it. But I think they're pretty intent on making sure that they, you know, made a quality product, because I looked at this video and it showed a lot of testing, a lot of endurance testing to make sure that when they release it, it's not going to suck. So that could be something that's hopeful. But for this, it seems pretty neat that they, you know, they might actually have thicker plastic pieces so that it won't actually break like the Scuf Animal did on me in the past. And then you still have the adjustable triggers, and you have this special EMR technology. So this could be something that might be, you know, competing with the new Xbox One controller that'll be coming out. And it says starting at $120, but that's definitely not true. This is going to be way more than $120 to equal the performance of this Xbox Elite controller. So going on to what's available now from Scuf. So since this is basically isn't coming out until this summer, we're going to go to what's available now from Scuf, and we're going to build our own and compare the price to what you would get from the Xbox Elite One controller, or whatever, the Xbox One Elite controller. That's what it's called. So buy now. And another thing to keep in mind if you buy one of these controllers now is you could possibly get the controller that's not the new next-gen controller with a 3.5mm jack installed. You might have one of these where you still need to use one of these stupid adapters from Microsoft. So keep in mind that this is just going to be extra money, and it wasn't really affirmed whether or not that this controller, as you see, like this controller here, the Scuf Infinity 1, it doesn't have the 3.5mm jack, so you're still going to have to buy one of these, which, as everyone knows, these adapters suck, where the Scuf, the new Xbox controllers with the built-in 3.5mm jack might actually be good. I'm hoping it's actually going to be good, because the Xbox 360 controller was perfectly fine. So hopefully this will be an improvement. And that's something to keep in mind with the Scuf, is that you're going to need that adapter. But now stop rambling and move on. And so we're going to just pick the basic Scuf 1 FPS, the cheapest one, for $110, and then we're going to modify this to match the new controller from Xbox. So I want the 4 paddles. We're going to go down here to the EMR. Now, for some reason, the EMR isn't compatible with this controller at this time. It's supposed to be, but I guess it's just not an option. I tried looking around, it's just not an option for this. But this option on the PlayStation 4 is an extra $25, so keep that in mind at the end and total price of this controller. So we're going to move on to the triggers. So I want the internal trigger stops, and then don't worry about the grip. We're going to be changing out the grip the next scene. Now, as far as the rumble packs in the Xbox One are in, so we're not going to remove them. But if we did remove them, that's an extra amount, but we're going to keep them in. And then the grip, we're going to go with the Scuf grip. So it has the grip on the outside and the inside, and that basically matches the grip here, whereas both on the whole, basically the whole grip area has the nice fancy grip. So that's what we're going to have with this Scuf One. And then moving on to the analog sticks, I'm going to keep the analog sticks the same, just because, well, if you want to change something, it's going to be an extra $6 for something like that. And if you want to change the right one, another $6. So that's about an extra $10, but we'll just keep the difference, or this, like, basically the Xbox One default. But we'll assume that anyone buying this controller is going to get a Control Freak, and Control Freaks range anywhere from $10 to $20, depending on which Control Freak you want. So another thing to keep in mind at the end of this build. And so then moving on to the control disc, yes, we're going to want this little circular disc because that's what comes with the Xbox One Elite. And then the design and colors, we're not going to have anything like that. And then just standard. So we're going to add this to the cart. And as you see, the total for this controller is $160-ish. So to add the Control Freaks, let's just say another $10, so $170. And then to add the EMR technology so you could change the buttons on the fly, that's going to be wait, I said 170, so $195. So almost $200 just for this, but you also have to factor in that you're going to need to buy a braided cable and the protective case. So in total, you're going to be spending about $210 or $215. No, $210. I was right. So $210 for this to compare it with the Xbox One Elite. So, you know, the Xbox One Elite is a better deal, and it just looks really freaking cool. So I'm actually really stoked about this. But with the Xbox One, I mean, you don't necessarily need to get this with Scuf. Scuf is really into the, you know, the like Call of Duty eSports and all that. So if you wanted something fancier, if you go to buy now, you can see that they support all these teams at the bottom. So whatever your favorite eSport team, whether it be FaZe or, you know, they even have, I think, maybe a Curse controller, which I'm partial to Curse, but then all these other designs, you can get Cash Money design, a pink controller. So I mean, that's one of the main selling factors when it comes to Scuf, is that you can support your favorite e-team if you're into that sort of stuff. But anyways, moving on to some competitors. So Scuf isn't the only game in town when it comes to these modified controllers. Another popular controller company is called Cinch Gaming, which is located in the United States. And these don't necessarily have paddles, but they have these little push buttons that kind of like fit more onto where your hand normally lays. So I kind of like that, but then I also like Scuf's paddles because it gives you a better range as far as you could kind of place your hand more comfortably wherever you need, whether your fingers be longer than others. And then it offers greater flexibility and ease to press a button. So I prefer Scuf over Cinch just because of my opinions on the buttons themselves. But everyone's different. Some people might prefer these, but these are basically about the same price as the Scuf controllers, but then their teams that they sponsor aren't as prestigious as the Scuf teams. And then the last mod company that I'm aware of is called Nifty Mods, and these are, you know, basically every one of these controllers are the same. These are located, I believe, in the UK, just assuming because they use pounds here. But this is another company that you could go with, and I'm not sure if they use paddles. Let's actually take a look at it. Let's just go with this. Xbox One. Nifty Mods. I just want to go and... Oh, I guess maybe they don't have actual... Oh, I thought these were modified controllers. I could be wrong. Or Xbox One Customizer. We'll click on that and see if that offers anything. So, oh yeah, they do have paddles. Sweet. So they have these little things. So these are the paddles that they'll offer. It doesn't look like they offer 4-button. They just offer 2-button, but that's another thing that you could have. But one thing that they do is, like, see right here, they offer this nice big fat paddle for where your fingers normally lie, and that's what I like. So that's what I like with the direction of the actual official Xbox One Elite. So if you are into the modified market and you are really looking at getting a controller from one of these companies, I would highly suggest possibly waiting for the Xbox One Elite, especially if you're into the whole esports thing and you want to play better. You don't want to use the actual claw grip and mess up your hand and possibly give yourself early arthritis. The Xbox One, I think, is possibly the best deal for your money. And I think when it comes to October, I'll be getting it. But if you're not into going to official tournaments and you're not going to be going to try to emulate any of your favorite esport competitors, there is one product that I would highly recommend over these modified controllers, and that's going to be a product to allow you to use a mouse and keyboard with your consoles. And it's what I use, and I personally love it. I prefer over the Scuf controllers. It's just because I'm using an actual mouse and keyboard to aim and run around in my favorite first-person shooters on the console. So it's just a fantastic product, and that's going to be the XIM4. Now, when it comes to these sort of adapters that, you know, allow you to use a mouse and keyboard with a console, like, the XIM is the best adapter on the market, hands down. It's better than the Keymander, and it's definitely better than the shoot, I can't remember, like some little USB thing that I have that I never really used because I didn't really like it as much as the XIM. But the XIM is definitely the way to go, and it's what I use. I've done videos on it in the past, a review, and I still use it today. So this is what I really recommend. Now, if you are trying to go to tournaments and you are trying to be a pro esport player, you definitely can't use these in the tournaments. Even though this doesn't do anything that you can't do with a controller, like I said before, it's just something that's not accepted yet, but it might possibly be in the future. So I'm excited about this whole Xbox One Elite. But then if for anyone out there who was interested in it, I would recommend getting a XIM4, because for $130 you could get this, and you could use your favorite mouse and keyboard for all 4 consoles: the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox 360, as well as the PlayStation 3, all with a single device. You just basically have to hook up a controller to this of the specific console, and then you're able to use the mouse and keyboard, and it emulates the inputs of the mouse and keyboard to what a controller would do, and it's just fantastic. So anyways, that's my opinions and thoughts on the Scuf Elite as far as what I think of the features and what they're doing with it. I highly approve of what Microsoft is doing with this controller, even though I kind of lost face with Microsoft and I'm not really interested in the Xbox One anymore. What they're doing with this controller is actually still pretty cool, but what I'm interested in is if Sony is going to retaliate in the future from this controller, if they're going to make or design their own Elite controller, which would be something that I'd be very interested to see, or if they could possibly maybe do native mouse and keyboard support. Because one thing with the XIM is, even though this is a fantastic product, there still is a little bit of delay, like I think about 4 to 8 milliseconds, which was the same amount of delay that you would receive with the Xbox 360 controller if you used a wireless versus the wired. So I mean, it's not completely perfect, but it's the best thing on the market, and I don't mind whatsoever. I like the mouse, or I like the feel of the mouse over the analog stick any day, especially when it comes to aiming. So that's something I'm interested to see if Sony's going to retaliate in the future, especially because Call of Duty is officially moving over to the PlayStation, and that's what's probably going to be used in the upcoming MLG tournaments. Is a lot of people might be moving over to the PlayStation 4, so I think the PlayStation 4 is actually going to have a majority of the first-person shooter market. But who knows? Xbox might be trying to make a comeback, which it definitely looks like with this controller. But that's my thoughts and opinions. I'm going to stop rambling. That's it for the video. Let me know what you guys think in the description below if you're still here, as far as what you think about it. And if you are interested in this controller but want to see a review of it first, be sure to subscribe to my channel, because I'll most likely be getting one of these in October just to do a hands-on review. But anyways, thanks for watching the video. I'll talk to you guys in the next one, all right? Bye-bye.